My name is Carl Antonucci, and I'm the Director of Library Services at the Elio Burr Library at Central Connecticut State University.
Yes.
I'm also the Chair of the Connecticut Library Association Legislative Committee and the Chairman of the Board of the Connecticut Library Consortium. So today we are here to speak out very loudly for libraries. We're going to shed that old stereotype that librarians are a quiet group of people. I know our lobbyist Bobby Shea is happy to see us all down there helping him go libraries. And we are here to work with the governor and the legislature to restore library funding. And I'd like to recognize State Representative Hilda Santiago from Meriden. State Representative Phil Miller from Deep River, Essex. State Representative Jonathan Steinberg from Westport. And State Representative John Hampton from Simsbury. And Senator Tony Long. Fairfield. Thanks again for coming to show your support for libraries. And we have a great panel of speakers today. They're going to talk about some of the cuts in libraries. We provide a lot of great things for people. We have the young children here today. We want to thank them for coming, and they appreciate their libraries. But I just want to start with something that my daughter couldn't be here today, but that she wrote. She's an avid library user, avid reader, and she just wrote this on books, because we want to show that also we provide many electronic resources that are great as well, but books are still very important to us. And that's why we want to keep the funding for the Connecticut card. And my daughter writes this at 12 years old, Natalie Antonucci. I love reading books. They're amazing things. When I read books, I feel like I'm in another world. Books take you many places. Also, when you're reading books, you can use your imagination. You can imagine what the characters look like and sound like. You can build a strong vocabulary when you read. Books are always a great way to spend time when you're bored. You can get to go on amazing adventures without even realizing it. So I'd like to introduce our esteemed panel. I'm going to introduce each person. They're going to come up, and then I'll introduce the next person. So first, I'd like to introduce Maxine Bleiweiss. She's the Executive Director of the Westport Library, former President of the Connecticut Library Association, and the author of A Librarian's Guide to Economic Development, titled Helping Business. Before her 17-year tenure in Westport, she directed the public libraries of Newington and Suffield. And thank you, Maxine, for coming.
Who has dedicated my 40-year career to getting people what they need in order to succeed in every stage of life. And I'm mad. I'm mad that after almost 40 years of extreme cooperation over the borders of 169 towns, our governor's budget throws away the simple elements that allow equal access to learning. I'm mad that the programs which were the precursors to Chef versus O'Neill are no longer recognized as such and deny equal opportunity. I'm mad that we'll be wasting far more taxpayers' money than we'll ever save if we don't have a way to borrow over our borders. I'm mad that the haves will have and the have-nots will have not. I'm mad that the most important thing a librarian does is open the doors each day and say, come in and partake, no matter who you are or where you come from. That will end. Join me in being mad and do something about it. Be heard, be loud, be insistent, be clear. Be mad. Thank you.
I'm pleased to introduce James Ben of Lyme, Connecticut. He is the author of the Billy Boyle Mystery Series, a member of the Lyme Public Library Board of Trustees, and a former librarian with over 35 years of service in Connecticut libraries. He worked for a time at the State Library in a position that has long since been lost to previous budget cuts. James Ben.
Thank you all for coming out. Since the early 1800s, Connecticut has been known as the land of steady habits. Early on, we were renowned for political stability, thrift, and intelligence as applied to our governance and character. Today, this proposed budget threatens a long and steady habit. For nearly half a century, Connecticut citizens have enjoyed the steady habit of reciprocal borrowing, the freedom to choose what library to use based on work location, commute, school, or any other personal preference. That's Connecticut card, and it costs $950,000 a year. Last year, Connecticut citizens borrowed over 4.5 million items from out-of-town libraries. If libraries or individuals had to purchase those books on their own, the cost would exceed $68 million. That's a steady habit of thrift and economy, but it vanishes under this falsely frugal budget. As a writer of historical fiction, I depend on my public library's collection for research materials to sharpen and bring depth to the novels I write. My books are set during the Second World War, and each is based on an actual historical incident, which requires extensive reading and research to get right. So, in addition to using my library and Connecticut card at other public libraries, I take full advantage of interlibrary loan to search for materials in a statewide database and order through my library as those esoteric or expensive novels or books that are too expensive for my library to own. It's an invaluable aid to research and a grand economy of scale for all libraries. But wait, that's another steady habit on the chopping block. This budget eliminates state aid to public libraries. Losing both Connecticut card and state aid means the corresponding loss of $500,000 in federal funds. And those federal dollars are used to support Connecticut card, the interlibrary delivery service, which is the backbone of resource sharing in our state. So, interlibrary loan vanishes, another victim of the false economies at work in this proposed budget. All this is a loss for me. It will make my job harder. But it is also a loss for all 169 towns, which will have to make up the lost state aid revenue in local taxes. It's a loss for families who depend on libraries, to those in urban areas where state aid makes a huge difference, and to anyone who has enjoyed the simple freedom to borrow and return a book anywhere in the state. I can only hope our governor and the legislators will adopt the steady habit of common sense and fix this broken budget. Thank you.
We'd also like to welcome State Representative Gail Lavelle from Westport, Norwalk, and Wilton. We thank her for wearing her library red. I'm pleased to introduce Kate Byrode. Kate Byrode is a West Hartford resident and director of the Cragen Memorial Library in Colchester. Kate.
In a career that began in my hometown of West Hartford 30 years ago as a teenager, I was the person who wrapped and unwrapped the bundles of books being shipped all across the state. You think West Hartford is a rich town, don't you? But let me tell you, West Hartford cannot buy everything. Our residents depend on C-Card and C-Card as much as any other. I've served in 4 towns in the state: Bethel, Glastonbury, Portland, and Colchester, besides West Hartford. And Manchester, 5 maybe. And those towns have all seen visitors from all across the state. Every month I had to report the loans that were made to out-of-town residents. When I had a job 20 years ago, I was the person who had to compile that statistic and report it to the state. Every month, at least 100 towns were reported, and that was for the little library in Portland, Connecticut, a town serving 9,000 people. Connecticut is a powerful program. It equalizes. It is a powerful program because it's a measure of quality service. And it's efficient. It's incredibly efficient. It reimburses towns for serving non-residents, and it does so at a very low price. $950,000 is a sliver of a sliver of a sliver in this budget. I asked the legislature to consider restoring this money. I also want to talk about the Connecticut Library Consortium. Now, I'm a library director. I'm not a page wrapping and unwrapping budgets. I'm a director who has to balance a budget of about $500,000 a year. I have just under $50,000 a year to purchase all the things my library needs to lend to the residents of the town. I could not purchase what I purchased without Connecticut Library Consortium, the cooperating library service unit for the state of Connecticut. I saved 22% of my materials budget last year, $12,000. Colchester schools are strapped. We have a local annual budget referendum. Our budget fails once, twice, 3 times each spring. The school budget last year saved nearly $5,000 in purchases for school library materials. Huge savings for a small town. And back in West Hartford, that town where I still live, $129,146.13 in savings for West Hartford residents. Again, about 22% of the local materials budget. And then another $18,869.38 for the local public schools libraries. That savings means something. $322,000 a year from the state to support the Connecticut Library Consortium. That's 10 cents a Connecticut resident. It yielded $7.1 million in savings last year. That's nearly $2 a resident. I call that really good return on investment. We're being asked to be businesslike. We are businesslike. These are false savings. These are cuts to services or pressure on local tax dollars. Please consider restoring the funding for these key programs. Thank you.
We'd also like to welcome Senator Ted Kennedy from Guilford, Branford. I'm pleased to introduce Elizabeth Rousseau. Elizabeth is a freshman at Hall High School in West Hartford. She plays softball, is active in Girl Scouts and in her community, and loves to read. Elizabeth?
My name is Elizabeth Rousseau. I live in West Hartford, and I'm a freshman at Hall High School. I'm a good student, Girl Scout, and I play softball for Hall. But one of my favorite things to do is to read. All my friends come to me and ask, what are you reading? And I'm reading constantly. Lunch is my reading time. And right now, I like to read a lot of new books, but I don't want to pay $20 a book at Barnes & Noble when it comes out. So I want to get it from West Hartford at the branch nearest me. But sometimes there's a whole line, and so I'll get it from like Wells Turner, or my mom will get it for me at her library. But with the cuts, that won't happen. My mom won't be able to get me books when I say, oh Mom, can you pick this up for me? It's at your library. She won't be able to do that because it's to me a West Hartford resident and she's working in Colchester. And that'll really make it tough because I live far enough away from the nearest library that in December at night, I don't want to walk. And if my parents aren't home, I don't have a ride. I'm only 15, I can't drive. So that makes it hard to get a book. And then I'm going out and I'm spending my own money when I don't have to, which is not fun. Babysit, not enough. So my parents have to drive me everywhere to get books, and I can do that. I can get the newest James Patterson, I can get the newest Allie Carter, I can get anything. I can get whatever I want to read, which is really good. But now I won't. With this budget, I won't be able to have anything. It's just West Hartford, and West Hartford's really good. But it's not everything, and it's gonna take me forever to get through a whole line, instead of just like a couple weeks. If for like All the Light We Cannot See, I wanted to get that book. I got it in a month instead of how long for West Hartford? 2 years? So please don't cut state library funding for Connecticut, and let me keep on reading what I want to read.
I'm pleased to introduce Vince Giuliano. Vince is a retired library administrator, most recently from Middletown's Russell Library and the Waterford Public Library. A resident of East Hartford, Vince is a past president of the Connecticut Library Association and recipient of the association's Outstanding Librarian of the Year Award. Vince.
First of all, thanks for coming. It's important. Today, you expect to be able to walk into any library in the state of Connecticut with your local library card and take out books, or DVDs, CDs, or all the other things that libraries have to offer. You can do that. Your card is honored throughout the state because of the Connecticut program. But Connecticut, as you've heard, may be lost this year. The proposed budget not only eliminates the funding for Connecticut, but goes even further and eliminates the statutory authorization for Connecticut. Now, I think of the days before Connecticut as kind of a feudal period, sort of dark ages of library service. Now, I'm looking around the room, and I get the gray hair and all that. I've been around a while, although I'm not a native nutmegger. But I remember the days, and I'm sure many of you don't remember the days, when there was no such thing as Connecticut. If you lived, I see some people shaking their heads, if you lived in town A, you paid taxes in town A, and you were able to use the town A public library. But woe unto you if you walked over to the next town and tried to take a book out. Okay, that was not part of the scheme back then. Now, a group of innovative librarians and forward-thinking legislators realized that the resources of a single library could not meet the needs of the people within the community. They just couldn't afford to build a building and stock it with enough books to make everybody happy. So they came up with an idea. Let me just back up. I said feudal. Remember, 169 more or less independent towns. So that was an issue for them. What they came up with, this enterprising group of librarians and legislators, was they dreamed of a vast collection. They didn't dream of one big building to put everything in. They didn't dream of different huge libraries around the state. They said, look, we've got all these books in all these libraries. Why can't people have access to the books that are in every library? And so they came up with this Connecticut concept. What's interesting is it needed two elements, really, to make it work. One was some state funding, because we had to encourage libraries and towns to take on the extra effort it would take to serve non-residents. The other thing was a delivery system, which we now know as Connecticut. That was to ensure that libraries got their books back. Now, the Connecticut concept was so successful, it made so much sense, both from a financial and service standpoint, that it was made a reality in 1973, which was 3 years before the actual 1976 target date. So let's take a look at how Connecticut has increased the number of print materials. We'll just look at print to every single resident of Connecticut. Today, half the state's public libraries have less than 50,000 volumes. However, when you add together all of the public libraries, all that collection, Connecticut residents now have access to a huge collection of just under 13.8 million items. And that doesn't include AV items or electronic items. Now, since Connecticut was conceived of in the 1970s, I'm going to use a little 1970s technology, in quotes, okay, to show you the difference between that 55,000 volumes and the 13.8 million volumes that we now have available to us. These are catalog cards, some of you remember. These things weigh a ton. Okay, this card, this single card, represents 55,000 volumes. Now, as they say, worked in rehearsal. Jim, could you just pick that up? Okay, this is what these things look like. This is what our resources look like today compared to what we had back in 1970. Okay? There's a lot of stuff. Like I said, those cards weigh a lot. Okay, now the ultimate proof, and the ultimate proof of Connecticut's value is whether or not people use it. In fiscal year 2014, Connecticut loaned 4,500,000 items to state residents. Now, if all those books were laid end to end, you can start down southwestern Connecticut in Greenwich. Okay? Lay down a trail of books to New London, way over in southeastern Connecticut. Then from southeastern Connecticut, New London, you could go up to Putnam in northeastern Connecticut. And from there, you could go to northwestern Connecticut to Torrington. And you could make your way back down to Greenwich. After you lay down that trail, you can start all over again and widen that path that you just made so that it was 2 rows of books. And after you got back to Greenwich, you could even make a side trip to Meriden. Anybody here want to go back to this? No. We want millions of books for us and our people, the people we serve. Thank you. And as Bob would say, go library!
Thanks, Vince. And we'd like to also welcome Representative Devin Carney from Old Lyme. We just want to take a little break in the program and invite any of our senators or reps if they'd like to say a few words to come up to the podium.
Well, welcome to your house. This is your house, so make sure. Thank you for being here today. This is really a show of support to make sure that we don't cut these funds. Make sure that you email your reps, make sure you email the governor, and make sure you email the chairs of finance and appropriations. I'm the vice chair of finance, so I know a lot of the cuts that have been made with this budget. So we will be working to try to put them back in, but we need to hear from the constituents that this is very important. And of course this is very important because you're here today. So I will be supporting to put this money back. The libraries are dear to my heart because that's where I went as a child, to learn how to read and to learn the language, and it was important to me. And the libraries was a place where I took my children to learn and to socialize and to love reading just as much as I do. So please make sure that you get a hold of your senators and your state reps. Write letters like the one that you're writing. Make sure that your state rep and your state senator receives it because it's important to also hear from the children. So please. Keep up the good work, and this is what we need in order to make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to say that there's a lot of people who might not be in the know about what our libraries are today. Sometimes you hear people saying that with the advent of higher technology and such, that there's a notion that books may someday be obsolete and such. But you only have to visit any of our libraries to see that our libraries, as Hilda well stated, are very rich and vibrant community centers. And another odd notion that people have, especially when there's a tight budget, is you hear people speaking about duplicative efforts, that we have a lot of organizations and programs that are silos operating independently. And nothing could be further from the truth with our libraries, especially with all of the interloan programs. So that speaks to how efficient our libraries are and how well our libraries in total rub nickels together very well. So it obviously is unwise. And when we make small cuts like this, these are cuts which are harming our ability to save money in the future by having a better educated group of people coming up. And so if all of you could go to your own legislators, there's a lot of form letters and form emails we get, but personally I find, and I've spoken to a number of my colleagues who find that very short, brief emails that state the case succinctly and from your own heart really do matter. And our aides, when they read these, they mention, my aide tells me, this isn't a form letter either. Great. So these things matter. So if you could reach out, it'd be very helpful. Thanks so much, and hopefully we can do something.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Representative Jonathan Steinberg from Westport. I have to admit, my mother would drag me to the library before I could read. And I knew I was in someplace special because everybody was very hushed and you had these long halls full of books. It was sort of a cathedral of knowledge. And I think we all early on earned a sort of respect for the idea of libraries. But I contrast it very much with what it is today, which is so much more than a repository of books. I'm so proud to represent Westport and the Westport Library, which is known not just in Fairfield County, but regionally as a place where people come together. For many of us, it's virtually a second home, because we can go there to not only pick out a book or a tape or a CD, but go there for meetings, go there for special events. I remember very distinctly the night the latest Harry Potter book came out, and we were all there at midnight with all the kids. So it's intergenerational. Westport boasts a makerspace, so we're all about creating and making. It is almost a different world from the generation that I grew up with in this sense. And we've all taken it for granted to a certain degree, maybe up till today, that all those things that we now go to libraries for are now somewhat at risk. So I agree with what my colleagues have said. This is an imperative. We are facing a crisis. We do not act together, and not just the people here in this room. So many of us need to reach out to our friends in the communities and make sure that they're involved with this as well. Alert them to the fact that they've got something at stake here and they have a lot to lose. So we hope that we will hear from all of you and all your friends over the coming weeks. It's only a matter of days before this proposed legislative budget will be due out, and we're going to need to have everybody on board if we're going to bring about the changes we need. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm here as a card-carrying member of the Simsbury Public Library. Since 1972, and I got to give a shout out to our Simsbury Library peeps, Lisa Caron, Sue Ray, David Blumey, Buck Kelly, Marge Storrs, and Jennifer Cohane, former staff member at our library, who created our Business Resource Center, an incredible resource for people seeking employment, starting small businesses. As my colleague said, libraries are more than just books these days. They are the new town green of America. It's where people come together. Come together, share information. I walk through the library, the doors of my library, and there could be a foreign language class going on, 3D printing, civic meetings. You could take a fishing rod out for your child to take them fishing. There are employee support programs. I met a gentleman one day seeking his citizenship. He was doing research on how to become a citizen. It is an incredible, vital part of our American civil society. And sadly, with these cuts, we are cutting away the fabric of our basic American civil society. And that's what we should not be aspiring to. As the most incredible nation on this planet, we should be aspiring to a higher level by opposing these cuts. And I join my colleagues from both sides of the aisle and both chambers to support you and act on your behalf in the next few weeks. We can do better than this, and we will. So, thank you.
You don't have to convince me. I spent my entire graduate school time and college time studying literature. And I have so much experience sitting in libraries, reading in them, and sleeping in them. And the first experience I really remember, I was about 8 years old, and my mother took me to the Willowwood branch of the Houston Public Library in Houston, Texas, and we checked out Harriet the Spy. And I still read Harriet the Spy every year. Since then, I have not missed a year. Just a couple of things, because it's getting a lot of us here. Two quick things. One, Connecticut has value beyond what most people can